while we would try all the controls, you'd make sure you have oxygen and stuff all topped up. You'd make sure all your oils were chopped up. And there was no visible signs of oil leaks, because the Firefly, of course, is liquid cooled. So you got coolant. Whereas the other squadron, the Sea Furies, they were air cooled, a big radial engine. Ours was the big inline Griffin, like the old Merlin engines. So all those things were critical. That was all topped up, no leaks. You try your hydraulics. You couldn't try your undercarriage because it was down. So the only thing you could do was to make sure that everything was running. Occasionally we would start the engines up, and I could do that. We would go in, prime the engine, start it, and you'd warm the engine up because you're all ranged down the back end of the flight deck. Sometimes you were actually pushed out over the sea on girders that put the three wheels, tail wheel, and then put the clamps on then, and you'd be out of the way so they could clear the other aircraft. But mostly you were on deck with the cables attached to the undercarriage to hold you down and stationary while obviously the ship's rolling somewhat, sometimes more than others.
Are you doing the armament?
No, we have an armourer. They have armourers, and we assisted those. I've got some pictures there where, while we were in harbour, we helped them load 20mm ammunition, keep putting the rounds into belts to go on board ship. As you'll notice, in one of those flights that we had a problem where we were using old 20mm ammunition from the Second World War, and it was exploding in the wings, and we lost an aircraft, which I've listed in there.
And what was it like to lose an aircraft on board? How did it affect morale before you lost your pilot?
Well, it's weird really, because you get used to the same pilot. You come out and you'd see him in and strap him in, and you'd see him fly away, come back. He'd be all smiles. You know, you could see relief on their faces when they clambered out. They'd be all sweating, pull their helmets off, and there'd be beaming smiles, you know, because it must have been terrible. You notice they were all full of sweat because some of the flight gear that they had on, and they had to wear a wetsuit because if they crashed in the sea in Korea, you wouldn't last minutes unless they were picked up. So they had these horrible wetsuits, real clammy, over the top of their flying suits in case they did ditch into the water. But of course, if it was the other squadron that had lost an aircraft, you didn't quite get the feeling again. It was your squadron. But then, of course, you used to have a service, regular services on board, and at one of those, and then we would all range and say prayers, and you know.
Burial at sea.
Well, he didn't come back. See, we didn't. We never had anyone return that was dead. They'd all either been shot down, crashed, lost, external to the ship. So we never actually got a body.